Welcome back. You're watching The Money Show with me, Kavita Thapliyal. Mutual funds are a preferred investment option for investors because of their various benefits. However, while investing, investors can face issues with the service provided by their asset management company. As a mutual fund investor, it is better to know how to get your complaints addressed and resolved. Let's understand more about this, and for this, let's welcome on board Arnav Pandya, founder Moneyeduschool. Good evening, Arnav, and welcome to the show. So today we're going to talk about a topic that's not discussed a lot, which is complaints of your AMC or a mutual fund. Normally, what kind of complaints do we really see coming against mutual funds or AMCs? Because this is not like insurance where we see a lot of mis-selling, but then there have been cases of mis-selling in this sector also.
Good evening, Kavita. So one can classify the various complaints that come against mutual funds into two categories. One are what one could call the routine or the regular complaints. What these normally deal with are things like, say, non-receipt of account, or it could be non-receipt of redemption proceeds. It could even be something like that you have updated your, say, details of either your mobile number or it could be your address, but it is still not reflected with the mutual fund. So these are small procedural matters where a lot of complaints come in because of say changes which have occurred but which are not reflected in the records of the mutual fund. Many times what happens is that, say, you change your bank account or you close an old bank account, but that bank account was linked to the fund. So suddenly the next time either you redeem some units or you get dividend, it doesn't come into the account because the account is not linked. So these are routine matters. Then there are the serious matters which could involve something like, say, manipulation of your investment. It could be that maybe you made an investment but it is not reflected in your account, it has gone somewhere else. All these are slightly worrisome. It could also involve, say, mis-selling by a distributor or some other person. So these are the serious complaints which can come into play, but most of them would fall under either of these categories, though a large proportion is normally the regular complaints.
So for that, do we have to go to the AMC, like contact the fund house, because most of these complaints are procedural complaints, and these can be easily sorted out once you speak to the mutual fund house? Is that so?
Yes, so the first point of contact is obviously the mutual fund itself, because in most cases, I mean, it's very easy to solve these kind of complaints with the mutual fund itself. So you contact the mutual fund with your details, with your folio number, with the fact that this is, for example, if you have not received, say, last 2-3 years dividend in some scheme which you've forgotten about it, you give these details to the mutual fund. Now, see, it is even easier to track these amounts. For example, I mean, mutual funds themselves put out details of which amounts are lying unclaimed with them. So if you find that your amount has not been received by you, you can easily go and claim these amounts. And also, I mean, portals like MF Central, where all the data of all your investments are centralized by the registrar and transfer agents, there also you can see that if some amounts are lying unclaimed. So this makes the mutual fund the first source of getting your complaints redressed, and in most cases this is where, I mean, you will be able to sort it out, because the mutual fund will tell you what exactly you need to do to get this matter sorted out.
One are these kind of complaints which are process related complaints, but then others, for example, a complaint against a mutual fund broker or a distributor. Can these also be registered against these people to a mutual fund house or an AMC?
So ideally, these kind of complaints which involve market intermediaries, those complaints have to go to SEBI, because these entities are regulated by SEBI. So SEBI has a complaint redressal system, which is also known as SCORES. It's an abbreviated term of the complaint system. So there you go, and when you go to this system, what happens is that first you got to register yourself with your PAN, mobile, email, all these details. Once you have registered, then you can lodge a complaint against these market intermediaries and the problem that you have. You can also lodge some complaint which you have tried to sort it out with the mutual fund, but they have not been able to solve. So these complaints can be lodged here. What it also requires is that if you have some attachment as proof for this, they allow you to upload an attachment also. And once all these details are mentioned, you can even have a description of what is the problem. And once the complaint is submitted, the system allows you to track the complaint. What action has been taken on it, you can see there when it has been taken, what is the process, where it has gone. All these things you can track within the system, so which makes this SEBI system very effective in trying to resolve your complaint.
And what's the timeline of resolving these complaints usually given, or it depends on what kind of a complaint it is?
So it depends on what kind of complaint it is. So mostly, I mean, once your complaint is received, the SEBI will forward, or rather they will ask for an explanation from either the mutual fund or the distributor or whichever intermediary is involved. It will give this intermediary certain time frame to get back with its reply. And once the reply is received, then they will act on it, or they will pass an order saying that this is what needs to be done. But usually, I mean, once the proper order, or rather the information is received from the distributor or the market intermediary who is involved, which even includes, sometimes what also happens is that these complaints are forwarded to AMFI, where AMFI then acts on it through its system to get the matter resolved. So whenever these kind of intermediaries get back with the results, you will find that the system will be updated with what had exactly happened.
And when we're talking about complaints against intermediaries, what exactly can you highlight? What kind of complaints?
So it could be that intermediaries, either one missold you some product, they might have promised something called guaranteed returns, which you are actually not supposed to do when it comes to mutual funds. It could be that they said one thing and the reality turned out to be different, which is why there is a loss or a discrepancy. It also could be some cases where you have invested through some intermediary, but you have not got either your units, or it has gone somewhere else. Your money cannot be traced. All these things are normally the usual kind of complaints which come with respect to various intermediaries.
All right, so this is all about the complaints that you can file against AMCs or intermediaries, but then we are also going to talk about the unclaimed money that's lying with the mutual funds, and recently the unclaimed dividends and units worth 2,637 crores is lying with mutual funds. So when we talk about unclaimed dividends and unit worth almost more than 2,600 crore, what exactly does it mean?
So it means two things. See, first is that if an investor has opted for a dividend payout plan, then whenever the mutual fund declares a dividend, the dividend will go to the investor. Now, there are so many old investments which have been made, and for which earlier the mutual fund used to send physical checks. Now, physical checks have a problem in the sense that if either they can get misplaced during process of being received, or if the investor has changed their address, then the dividend checks will go to the address which is registered, but nothing will happen to it. So it will lie there because obviously the investor is not there. Secondly, it could also be that the bank account is linked to this, but the transfer doesn't go through because of certain reasons. For example, earlier public sector banks had account numbers which were 4 or 5 digit numbers. Then they got converted to a longer, a 14-digit number, and so on. But if there are old investments which have only these 4-digit bank account numbers, obviously the system after some point will not take a direct credit from this, and which is why there will be a mismatch. Or it could be in many cases that the bank account has already been closed down. So in this kind of situation, when the mutual fund tries to transfer the money, it doesn't go through and it lies as unclaimed. The same thing happens with redemption also. Many times the investor redeems a mutual fund, but then they found that the bank account linked to it is some other account where either it has been closed down, or they cannot access it, or details have not been updated, which is why that money doesn't go into the account and it lies unclaimed. And this is a significant sum because there are lakhs of investors who have forgotten that they have old investments on which they have chosen the dividend option, on which they need to track whether all the dividends which they have come to them have been deposited or not. This specifically happens when all these old checks were being delivered and which have not been encashed.
So now how can you go up and claim your money, because to claim this money, you would obviously need documents. If you don't have anything in a form of a soft copy, you will have to submit some documents. How can you go about it if you don't have these documents, and what's the process laid down?
No, so there are two steps to this. The first step is that first of all, you determine that there is some amount to be claimed. So you have to first know that you have to claim an amount, and which can be done, as I said, that you either go to the mutual fund, check with them as to how many dividends are lying unclaimed. You can also do this process online. Mutual funds have this facility. Even MF Central has this facility, whereby the unclaimed amounts are reflected in the accounts. Only thing is that for all these things, your PAN number has to be there in the investment, and your mobile and email has to be linked. So those three are essential things. Now, once you determine that there is some amount to be claimed, you actually need to go to the mutual fund and then claim this amount. Most probably, if this is an old folio where the KYC has not been updated recently, the mutual fund will ask you for either of these three details. They will either ask you for your PAN, Aadhaar, or address proof so that those details are updated, and they will ask you for an updated bank detail, which is that your new bank account along with a cancelled check that will have to be given. It will have to be updated. In many cases, what will also happen and which can cause a problem is that the bank will also ask for a cancelled check of the old bank account which was registered. Now the problem here is that in many cases, if the old bank account has been closed, then how will you get an old cancel check which you might not have kept because you might have thrown it away when the account was closed? So in that cases, what you need to do is go to the bank where the account was and it was closed and get a certificate from them saying that this account has been closed.
All right, so there should not be any further delay if in case your money is lying unclaimed with any of these mutual funds. We've laid down the process for you. Thank you so much, Arnav, for being on the show and helping our viewers with that.